Good afternoon, everyone. Here on the AT, hiking south to where I left off last week, up to Firescald Ridge, doing an overnight trip here. As you can see, it's lightly snowing mixed with rain. We're over 3,000 feet elevation now. We started at Devil's Fork Gap. We're heading to Jerry's cabin shelter, where we're going to spend the night. We will be passing a shelter shortly called Flint Mountain Shelter. That's only 2.7 miles in from the start, so we are going to go past that another 6.5 miles to Jerry's cabin shelter. And it's supposed to have a chimney with a fireplace, no tarp in front. If we need to, we'll put a tarp in front to keep the wind out. However, luckily it's not too windy right now. This is going to be about 9.4 miles one way. And then in the morning, our plan, if we can, if the weather permits, because there's supposed to be snow up to 2 inches overnight, is what the forecast called for. Weather permitting, we're going to try and make it back to where I left off last week, up to Firescald Ridge, show you some views, and head back from there for about 13.3, 13.4 miles, I think it was. And should be a great night. Weather's supposed to be in the mid-20s overnight at the elevation we're going to be at, 4,100 feet. A little foggy right now on top of the precipitation, but thoroughly enjoying this. As ever, it's always a good time on the trail no matter what the weather's doing, as long as you have the right gear. Never a bad day on trail. So, and I got my accomplice with me. Say hello, Hank.
Hello, Hank.
We're going to make a good night of it. So, I'll holler at you guys later. So we're in it now, folks. Climbing up higher in elevation, it's turning more to snow, and it's accumulating a little bit here. So if it calls for 2 inches, we'll see, because it looks like we're about at 1 inch already, and it's still coming down. So I don't think it's supposed to stop until the overnight hours, but we should be fine as long as it doesn't turn to ice. Talk to you later. We're in the snow now, so you can see it's pretty deep. Several inches deep. It covers my foot almost. So makes it harder to walk. It seems like you're putting double the effort into each footstep. But it's not so deep that you can't walk. It's just more effort is required to actually walk. And still, we're actually making pretty decent progress. Should be at the shelter before 6. We're getting a little tired, but it's worth the effort. It's just a winter wonderland. Amazing to be out here. Hopefully we'll have a decent night and stay warm, and we'll holler back at you later. Hello, everyone. Day 2 on the Appalachian Trail. Spent the night at Jerry's cabin shelter. Now I'm getting an early start to head to Firescald Ridge. That's where I left off last week, so I can keep this trail, these trail journeys continuous from one point to the next. I'm trying to do it every week, but may have some weeks where I have to take off due to prior obligations. And but you can see it's a snowy wonderland out here. We slept pretty warm in the shelter last night. Temperature felt like it was probably in the 20s, maybe even low 20s. Don't know for certain, but it felt pretty cold. We were warm under our sleeping bags. Faces got a little cold, a little drafty. Had a fire going for about an hour or two. Couldn't sustain it as everything was so wet, and there wasn't any firewood in the shelter, hardly. Just little twigs and stuff. Anyway, I left Hank back at the shelter. He was a little tired, so he understood that I needed to come up here and finish what I left off last week and head to Firescald Ridge. It's 4 miles round trip. And I told him I'd be back in about 2.5 hours. So there you have it. I'll let you see the other side here. So I will talk to you later. Well, here I made it back to where I left off last week from the top of Firescald Ridge. And as you can see, there are no views. It's all foggy. Now I have to get back to the shelter to meet up with Hank. So I went a little bit further than where I left off last week, maybe by 1/10 of a mile and back. So now, time to head back. Here's the shelter we spent the night in. Just met Hank here. He went ahead on the trail to get a head start, and I'm going to catch up with him shortly. I'll show you the sign over here. Mile marker, 301.8 miles into the AT, coming north from Springer Mountain, Georgia. However, we're just doing section hikes of a day or two at a time, trying to knock it out that way since we don't have time to through hike. But I'm going to demonstrate a backpack hang on bear cables, as I mentioned that in a previous video, and I thought I'd show that to you here. So I'll get with you here in a minute. Nice hike at dusk. Go into Jerry's cabin shelter on the AT. Sunset on us, but we're hiking without headlamps because with the snow it's still reflecting the ambient light. And this is your view. Not much. It's really gray and not too cold though, ironically. Feels like the temperature's hovering around freezing, but we should be there. We have less than a mile to go. I'll holler back at you later. Eating my Kathmandu curry here at the shelter. Tried to get a fire going. It's all that's left of it because everything is so damp from the snow and rain. But you can see that we have a tarp in front. And so we could keep the wind out. Hank's got his backpack strung up. Can't really see it. It was dark. There it goes. He is laying down. And I am eating my dinner. So you get a little taste of shelter life. There's where my sleeping bag is. So should be a good night. See you later. Alright, so I told you in a previous video I was going to show you how to hang a food bag on these bear cables. So what you gotta do is take the hook, put the loop of your pack on it. In this case, my dry sack acts as my food bag. Once you do that, hoist it up as high as it'll go. And you take the carabiner over here on the end, and usually they have a place to put it on the tree, metal ring. There you have it. That's all there is to it.
I mean, that's just freaking beautiful, man.
Take a look at this beautiful view right down there. That's the Tennessee side right there.
That's darn pretty. Pretty. What it's all about.
As you can see, we've come out of winter and gone straight to spring. It's the thing about climbing up in elevation in the mountains, you go into different microclimates. So up there we had a lot of snow, several inches, and down here there's none. It's actually pleasantly warm and sunny down here, so we're enjoying this. Very steep downhill climb though. So, talk to you later.